Hold on. Say that again. CDO A has parts of CDO B, and CDO B has parts of CDO A, but then they both get put inside CDO C.
Yeah, that one's called CDO squared. CDO of a CDO. All right? And then there's CDOs made up of the opposite side of the bet you made with your swaps. We call them synthetic CDOs.
What did you Synthetic CDOs.
Synthetic CDOs.
That is fucking crazy.
It's not. It's awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we have to talk about how you better lose yourself in the comic the moment you want it. You better listen to FOMO. You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. This comic only comes around once in a lifetime. And by once in a lifetime, I mean once in a week. Because here we are a week later from the release of the Eminem Amazing Spider-Man variant cover. And now we got a new cover to talk about. The Amazing Spider-Man variant cover Spotlight Edition. That is right. The Spotlight Edition is the new, coolest, hottest comic book in the market right now. Who cares about the old cover A Amazing Spider-Man Eminem cover? Who cares about that one? We don't care about that one anymore. Now we're talking about the Spotlight cover. The Spotlight cover is all the rage. So in this video, we got to talk about this book. We got to talk about all of the kind of craziness that is happening with the book right now on eBay. And I would kind of want to reiterate a little bit of this idea of, pumping the brakes, being careful out there, because a lot of this stuff is a little bit sketchy considering there are still other books that are possibly going to be sold at retail prices. People are paying crazy prices on eBay right now. It's all under the guise of it being a pre-sale. How do you know these people even have the book? How do you know that the copy that you are buying is even going to be a near mint copy? So in this video, we're going to talk about all of those things. We're going to look at some of the prices, and we're going to cover this crazy Eminem Spotlight variant story. But before I get into it, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel, do one of those things. I should get into comic book music video parodies or something like that. That would be fun. That would be really fun, good content here on the channel. Remember when music video parodies were like all the rage on YouTube, circa like 2014? Like, do you think that there would actually be a market for that? In my previous life, I directed a ton of music videos. So I think I could make some funny YouTube parody stuff, but that's neither here nor there. Let me know if you guys think I should do a parody thing. Maybe for April Fools one day. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. But we got stories to talk about here. We got Amazing Spider-Man #1. Of course, this is the variant cover now. I happened to do a video about this story last week. I'm sure you guys have heard about it, but if you haven't, there was a cover done with Eminem and Spider-Man on it. It was a reference to the 8 Mile movie, and that book absolutely blew up in the market. And here we are a week later. Actually in my video, I mentioned that there was going to be an additional drop for this book called the Spotlight variant. At that particular time, we didn't really know what it was, but there were going to be 1,000 copies being sold on thehall.com, which is, of course, the website you guys see in front of you. And this would have been an even more limited drop compared to the 5,000 of the other cover that came out last week. And in my video, I was mentioning to you guys, hey, if you're somebody who really wants this, you may want to pump the brakes a little bit because, the eBay prices are going pretty wild. It's like a 5X all of a sudden on the retail price of the book. People are going crazy for this thing. There's going to be another drop. They're going to release another 1,000 copies. I mean, we don't know where the prices for this book is going to settle. But apparently it doesn't matter because now that we have this retail book, now everyone is losing their minds once again. But here is the book that came out on thehall.com. This is called the Spotlight variant. And as you guys can see, it is the same cover, except this time they took the background and put it in black and white. Hence, calling it a spotlight because Eminem and Spider-Man are in color. Wow. Okay, so here's the book. Everyone is losing their minds for it. It came out on thehall.com. The retail price for it was $75. And like all things do with these crazy drops, the website totally breaks. Nobody's able to get the book. It's all claimed by bots out there who have mastered the art of getting these hot drops. And the book effectively is now kind of sold out or out of stock. You can't get it anymore, although the people at the Hall on their Instagram made mention that they took measures to kind of prevent the bots from buying the book. So maybe they still have copies and they will release them even later today or later this week. More copies will show up on this store. But, people don't have patience. So they still go over to eBay buying the 10x price. And as you guys can see right here, we have over 40 listings for pre-sale of this book, being listed all the way up to $2,500. You can take a $75 retail book and sell it for $2,500 on eBay. That would be a pretty good payout, a pretty good payday and a return, if you ask me. So tons of new listings hitting the market right here. And, from very, very credible sellers. Like, if I just sort by lowest price, I can go here, I can get this book for $700 and I can buy it from this credible seller known as Quill Brandon, who only has one review and is selling this book on pre-sale. So I'm sure that if I buy it from him, that'll be a pretty safe thing to do. And, I'm sure it'll show up on my doorstep sometime next week for the book that he doesn't actually have in hand yet. And that's really one of the things I was kind of getting at with this idea of pumping the brakes. It's wild to me that all of these books are being sold at these prices based on pre-sale. I mean, that is pretty risky overall. Like, how do you know the book that you're going to get is going to be, in near mint condition, is going to be a 9.8 candidate? I'm assuming the people who are buying this book are somewhat expecting it to at least show up in near mint condition, but there's no guarantees that that might actually be the case. In fact, I pulled up a couple of the sold listings here, and I just kind of want to show this one just to kind of emphasize some of the risk that comes with picking up this book, where you can see one here, and kudos to the seller that they actually listed this book as being damaged. So they said Marvel Comics, The Amazing Spider-Man 2022, #1 Eminem Variant, damage, ships now. So this person actually did get their book, which was, pretty cool to see. A lot of people in the comments last week actually did make mention that the books got shipped out, even though the store itself was saying there's no guarantee that it would show up by Christmas. So some people are getting their books, so that's good to see. Hopefully the people who ordered the Spotlight ones are also going to get it. And as you can see, if you go down here to this picture, you can see a pretty big spine tick right there in the middle of the book. Here is another spine tick down here. So this book came, not near mint condition. And that's really one of the huge risks that, I think people have when they're ordering these books, specifically off the pre-sales. If you're buying a book that is only posting the kind of retail photo of it, and it's not actually a book in hand, like at least this person, the seller, has the book in hand and they're selling it and they disclose that it actually had damage on it. The person who's picking it up just wants the book, good on them. But, some of these other ones that are just like the stock photo, I mean, you have no idea how these books are going to be arriving. We have no idea, if your book is going to be damaged and what condition it's going to be in. And that's really risky overall. Like, I would definitely, if I were somebody who really wanted specifically this older Eminem book, I really would still consider waiting, that kind of 1 month, maybe 2 months. I mean, hell, you should wait 6 months if you really want to see where the prices fall, just to ensure that you pick up the right type of book and it is in the condition that you want it to be in. But let's kind of jump back to, what we were talking about with this new Spotlight variant. And I think it's really crazy because we did kind of get a few really big sales for this book immediately after it got, put out on the haul. So remember, the retail price for the haul was at $75, and we got 11 sales just in the last sort of 24 hours. You can see some of these prices here. We got an $800 sale, an $800, a $777, a slash price of $875, a slash price of $950. We got a $1,000 sale right here, slash price of $1,400. Maybe that was $1,000 as well. And then earlier in the day, we had a $659, we had a $600, we had a $700, we had a $400, which was the first one to be sold that day. And that's pretty crazy overall. I mean, if you really think about it, it's a $75 retail book. We don't know what condition it's going to be showing up in. It's possible that later on in the day, these books are going to be showing up on the haul, .com. Maybe you can still have that opportunity to buy it at the retail price. So that's kind of one of the things where it's controlling your FOMO. I mean, who's to say that you won't be able to get this book later on in the day, later on this week? And then who's to say that, again, that there's actually only 1,000 copies? We've had this conversation many times before, guys, right? Where we're talking about print runs and print counts. Marvel only allows, people to do minimum orders of 3,000. Is there a guarantee guarantee that this book only has 1,000 copies out there? I mean, who's to say that the Hall doesn't have an extra 2,000 that they're sitting on? And when they see, the book selling for $800 on the secondary market, I mean, how would you not be tempted to have 2,000 copies of it and, sell it on the secondary market yourselves? It would be such an easy way to make money. I mean, when we're thinking about a book that has 1,000 at a retail of 75, that's a market cap of $75,000. But if all of a sudden, your 1,000 books are selling for 1,000 each, that's a market cap of $1 million. It's a huge difference. And again, with this book, I would definitely say, if you're somebody who actually wants this thing, I mean, look, if you really, really want it and you just have to have it and money anything, then by all means, just buy it. And know that it is possible that you may not be getting a 9.8 candidate. Otherwise, I would say, you got to let the waters cool with this one. I mean, I know I got a lot of comments from my previous video where people were talking about how, no, this is different. It's Eminem. You don't understand like how many people are fans of Eminem's. This book is going to the moon. And look, I'm not a prophet. I can't predict the future. I have no idea where this book's prices are going to settle. But what I do know, in the times in which I've been looking at every single comic book ever in the history of comic books, is that after the book is released, there is always a time when there is a pullback in the price. That's not to say that this book won't do this and then become a 5-figure book at some point in the future. That might happen. I'm not saying that that's not going to be the case, but what I am saying is that typically, almost 99.9% of the time, when a hot book comes out, 6 months later, there's a little bit of a correction, and then it gets hot again because people remember, oh, hey, here's a good time to buy this book. So that's really when you have the best opportunity to look for this book and pick it up and find it at what is, in theory, a good price. But before we kind of wrap it up here and talk more about it, I do kind of want to reemphasize this idea of, is this book rare? Now, granted, 5,000 print run on the original cover, 1,000 print run right here on the Spotlight variant. Definitely not a lot, right? Definitely not a lot, but we really got to put it into context here. We got to, bring up Eminem Punisher, this book from 2009, same artist who did the cover. This is Eminem's true first appearance in comic books, and this is kind of the Eminem Grail. And a lot of people point to this book as being like the case study for why this current Eminem Spider-Man book is going to go to the moon. But we really have to put it into context because I can't emphasize this enough. Look at the universal copies on CGC for this book. 86 universal graded copies, 96 total graded copies, meaning, restored or qualified or whatever the case may be. But 86 right here, or signature, I should say. Looks like there's 10 of them. 86 blue labels for this book. And how many 9.8s are there? How many 9.8s? There are only 25 on the census. And this is still, with a book only 25 on the census, is still only selling for, $1,700, right? So let's assume that Spider-Man is a more popular character, or we know that Spider-Man's a more popular character than Punisher. So let's assume that the likelihood or the chances for Eminem Spider-Man to be 2 times more valuable than Eminem Punisher because it has Spider-Man on it. I mean, sure, that's a possibility. But when I look at the value of this book right here being a $1,700 book, I mean, to me, that feels like the ceiling. So if you're somebody out there who thinks, hey, it's worth spending $1,000. I'm going to buy it off of eBay, roll the dice a little bit. Of the 1,000, how many are going to be sent to CGC? Well, let's say that there's going to be, 30% sent to CGC, I think would be a safe estimation. So 300 copies will go to CGC. And of those 300 copies, how many will be 9.8s? Well, let's take a look right here. So we see that, let's say there's 300 universal copies that show up, 9.8s, maybe a third of them end up being 9.8. So 100 CGC 9.8s. And then if we kind of normalize the numbers here, that's a quarter. We kind of reverse engineer it. It goes from $1,700 at the 25 census down to what would effectively be, based on these values right here, a $400 book. But if we're assuming that Spider-Man is twice as popular as the Punisher, then we can boost that up to, 900, 1,000, or whatever the case may be. So just doing the kind of quick napkin math, if I'm really thinking about it, I could see, the CGC 9.8s for the Spotlight variants kind of settling around the $1,000 price point, which is why, again, I'm kind of emphasizing this idea of, pumping the brakes a little bit, because, when we're buying our eBay books, for, you know, $700, $800, $900, even $1,000 in certain situations, it kind of feels like there's not much margin there for this book to flip. I mean, you might be able to get those sales right away if you're the first couple people who get those 9.8s in. Maybe you get that $1,500 sale. Maybe you get that $2,000 sale. Who really knows? But it feels more likely that, you know, in 6 months' time, a year from now, where the price kind of settles with that book at that 9.8 level, I would guess, it would be my projection that it would settle around that $1,000 price point, and then Cover A's variant might settle around that $500 price point because of the fact, if we think about, again, $5,000 doesn't seem like that much, but let's say 20% of people send it into CGC, that's $1,000. Let's say 30 to 40% of those 1,000 end up getting, you know, CGC 9.8s. That puts 350, 400 on the sensors or so. That might be worth the gamble, might be worth the return. But this, again, is me just sort of guessing. I don't think that buying it now is going to be the last time you will ever be able to find it for this price. Because in fact, as I mentioned a week ago when I was talking about the original cover, we saw books that were selling at 180, 200, 165, etc. And if we look at some of the recent sold items, well, we're seeing books sell at 180, 200, 165. So, you know, here we are a week later, the book is still selling at the same price. So, you know, I think if it's selling at the same price this week, it's probably going to sell at the same price next week as well. It's probably going to sell maybe even a little bit cheaper that next week. And I think it still might be worth waiting. Anyways, that's all for this video. That was me just sort of talking about this new Eminem Spotlight. Apparently, there's going to be more copies put on thehaul.com later today. We'll see what happens with that. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about this new variant cover of the variant cover? What do you think about this Eminem book? Do you think this is one for the long term? Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and we'll see you in the next video.